good to see everybody right here on 5 Plus. Time for another edition of 5 Outdoors. A lot of folks wrapping up all those holiday celebrations, and you might be wondering, what in the world am I going to do with this Christmas tree? Trey Reid, Arkansas Game and Fish, has the answer for you. Trey, how are you going to use those Christmas trees?
Skot, every year we want to encourage people to recycle those trees as fish habitat. Look, anglers have been saving their Christmas trees and sweetening their honey holes a little bit, off their boat docks or
Sure.
a favorite, submerged point on a lake or whatever for many, many years. But for, 20 or 25 years now, Arkansas Game and Fish has really kind of coordinated the effort to get people to drop these off at certain drop-off locations, boat ramps, access points on lakes around the state. And you can get a whole list of those at agfc.com to find out where you can drop them off. But, Scott, it's not just dropping them off. You can actually pick them up as well. It's like we always compare it to the little tray at the convenience store, leave a penny, take a penny.
Right.
Sort of the way this Christmas tree thing works. So, like you've got a pond or a lake, in your property that you want to sweeten up, increased fish habitat. Go by one of these drop-off locations, load the truck up, get you
Sure.
some paracord, some cinder blocks. What happens when you drop these in? They're not going to provide habitat for years and years, like some of our big projects that we do,
Sure.
moving cedar trees, like from Core Parks or Hobb State Park, and sinking those in Beaver Lake. Those are huge habitat projects that will last for a number of years, but these will last a couple of years, especially if you bundle several trees together. Those main, the trunk, the main stem
Right.
will hold up a little bit longer. Going to attract little fish, which in turn attracts the big fish that we like to catch, like walleye and bass and crappie and those sorts of things.
So there's no cost. You can literally dump off your used Christmas tree, not a fake tree, but an actual
it's got to
living.
be a living tree, a natural tree, and devoid now of tinsel and ornaments and any of that kind of stuff, lights. But you can just drop those off. Again, agfc.com. We've got a list of places all across the state where you can do that.
That's fantastic. And you have been repurposing those. You mentioned Beaver Lake, but a lot of area waterways over the last several years.
Yeah, we've been doing some really cool stuff. I think you've reported some on this, working with schools up here in Northwest Arkansas to growing there's a couple that have greenhouses and they're growing aquatic plants for lakes. So, the thing is, a lot of people don't realize that our lakes in Arkansas, we have very few natural lakes.
Okay.
Our Oxbow lakes along the Mississippi-Arkansas River, those are really the only natural lakes we have. So these are all man-made. Look, they're very fertile, they're very productive, great fishing the first 10, 15, 20 years.
Sure.
And then, like all of us, as we age, we're not as good as we once were as young people. So anyway, that's the same with the lake. So anything we can do to increase habitat, and these Christmas trees are, again, they're not a long term, but they can create some really good fishing. One other really cool thing about this, Scott, it is the public can go drop off, pick up trees. Whatever's left over, our Arkansas Game and Fish Commission fishery staff are going to go get those.
Okay.
And they're going to put those on existing habitat, like brush piles that we're creating in lakes or have created in the past to kind of freshen them up. And all of those go on agfc.com with GPS coordinates. So
you can plug it in.
Plug it into your fish finder, your handheld GPS. You can go right back to it and find that fishing spot.
That's fantastic. All right, let's switch gears here. Chronic wasting disease, we've all heard about it. It has been a big topic for what feels like the last several years. Maybe wrapping up some science and some research, and there's an opportunity for hunters to help finish some of that out.
Absolutely. For the last 5 years, Scott, we've been conducting a huge CWD research project. It is truly groundbreaking. It's the first of its kind in the southeastern United States. Primarily going on in Newton and Searcy counties, kind of that core area where we initially found CWD in 2016. We put this research out for bids a number of years ago, and the University of Georgia won the bid. And so they've been doing the research for 5 years now. And we're kind of coming to the end of the road on the field part of it. And so what we've been doing is marking deer in various ways, either with these leather neck collars, very obvious when you encounter one in the woods, and also with ear tags, like cattle tags, essentially.
Okay.
And we want hunters to shoot those deer. We're wrapping up the holiday Christmas hunt today. We got a youth hunt coming up in a few days. There's also some archery hunting that'll be going on. If you hunt in those areas, Newton and Searcy counties, and maybe some of the outlying areas, because the deer will, they're not necessarily going to stay in one spot, but you, different messaging from Game and Fish over the years, like it has been prohibited to shoot a collared bear in the past. And so sometimes there's some confusion, but we want hunters to treat those deer, if they've got a collar or an ear tag, just like any other deer. If you were going to shoot that deer, just whether it had a collar or an ear tag or not, then do so. If you're not, well then don't. But what this is going to allow us to do is to get our hands on these animals, test them for chronic wasting disease, any other diseases, and kind of help tie up the loose ends on this study. This study is going to be, I've used the word groundbreaking and I don't use it lightly, but we are going to get so much information, so many data points from these deer that we've been collaring and tagging and testing over the last 5 years. Not only in Arkansas, but across the country, wildlife managers are going to be using this material to help manage chronic wasting disease in deer herds where it's present.
That's fantastic. All happening right here in northwest Arkansas. Perhaps the River Valley as well. These deer might have migrated.
I mean,
out.
we do have, down down toward Russellville. We had a positive in Pope County a few years ago. So yeah, I mean, we have found the disease in a number of Arkansas counties now, but it's still that core area is where that research is taking place, and that's where the highest prevalence is. And one of the main questions we wanted to answer with this research is like, what effect does CWD have at the population level long term? Because we know it's a fatal disease, but like, how does it spread within a deer herd, and like, are some deer less susceptible to it than others, and what kind of, I mean, is it really something like that we, obviously we're concerned about it, but what kind of population level impacts does it have? And this research is going to help us answer that. And hunters, from the minute we found CWD, have been the first line of defense in helping Game and Fish collect samples and get tests done. And so hunters have played a critically important role.
Take them any means necessary, but at this point, that's primarily going to be archery, right?
It's probably going to be archery at this point, So we do have a youth hunt coming up, and one last day here of the Christmas holiday hunt. But archery hunting primarily, after that through the end of February.
This is a good natural segue while we're talking about the diseases and wildlife. Last time you and I spoke, avian influenza was on the uptick in our waterfowl here in Arkansas. But you and I both said maybe if we got some rain on the landscape, some of those birds would spread out, and maybe we would see a decrease in that transmission. We've had some rain on the landscape.
We have, and I think that's good news on the avian influenza front, because it does, it's been pretty dry throughout the fall and early winter, and so that concentrates those birds in fewer places, and obviously the more you congregate, the greater chance there is of disease transmission. But beyond that, Scott, it is just really welcome to duck hunters. It's been dry. It was dry last year, really through the first half of the season. And so we just reopened, the 27th for the last haul of duck season, goes straight through January 31st, and I'm excited about the rainfall. And there's been a lot in the Delta, the eastern third of Arkansas, which the northern Delta was in pretty good shape, but really the central Delta all the way down to southeast Arkansas toward Louisiana and Mississippi, it's been pretty dry down there. I've been watching the gauges at places like Biomeda and elsewhere, watching them tick up over the last few weeks after we have gotten more rain. But just our ag fields are going to have more runoff in them. To your point about the avian influenza and the snow geese, because that's the type of habitats they prefer. But we could use a little more cool, I think. But look, we've said it before. Water and rainfall is the #1 driver of duck abundance in Arkansas. And so I think this is welcome. And, the main thing is it's going to put some water on some public areas, because our public wildlife management areas, our green tree reservoirs, have been pretty dry throughout most of the season. That's where I hunt, and I haven't really even gotten out on public land at all yet. So.
You can't control the rain, but the good news is we're getting it that back half of the season, right? So still have, 30-something days to go?
Yeah, that's the, and every year I sort of struggle with this, Scott, because it's like the season starts before Thanksgiving. And it goes to the end of January, and we have 60 days. That's all the feds will allow us. But we split it up with our splits and two splits and 3 segments. But when we come out of Christmas here, that Christmas split, you have to remind yourself, hey, we've still got half the season left. We've got a full 30-plus days of the season left to hunt. So I think it's usually the best hunting this end of December, early to mid-January, and then they start to get paired up and get a lot harder to hunt. But I think the best is yet to come.
I got to say before we wrap things up today, you and I at the beginning of the season, or maybe a little bit before duck season, we talked a lot about the renovation work that Game and Fish is doing at Frog Bayou in Crawford County. I was lucky enough to get drawn for one of those draw-only holes, and I was so impressed with the work that's been done there.
Yeah.
It looks remarkable.
I mean, you know, Scott, I'm glad you brought that up because so many people think, you know, Game and Fish, we enforce the regulations, we set the rules, but man, there is so much work that goes on every day behind the scenes. And Frog Bayou is one example. We've done a lot of work down in the River Valley at Ed Gordon, Point Removed WMA as well. And I'm talking underground irrigation systems, water recovery systems to efficiently use water. And we're using surface water, so we're not depleting groundwater, you know, which is critical in some places. So a lot of great work. And man, you know, I don't want to be corny, but it's like I harken back to Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. And I'm glad to see that you are seeing the results of those labors by Game and Fish in the form of some waterfowl at Frog Bayou.
It was good. There are not that many places in West Arkansas that are purposely built and managed for waterfowl. Yeah. And that's one of them. And I'm really excited about the future of that because I know the work continues.
You know, we were constantly doing stuff and trying to improve and, you know, managing moist soil plants like, you know, smart weed and millet and things like that. I mean, it's like farming. You know, we're doing that every year. We're making sure the crop is right. I did notice on we just completed our first aerial waterfowl survey a couple of weeks ago, and that report came out last week. And Frog and Ed Gordon, a couple other spots in the River Valley, pretty good duck numbers in the River Valley. I'm telling you right now.
So. I'm telling you, when I was there last week, you go in with low expectations. I feel like that's the only way you should go in. But I was pleasantly surprised by the amount of birds that I saw.
No, the caveat is overall statewide duck numbers for December were about 50% of what what the long-term average is. But a bright spot was the River Valley. So, and I know a lot of listeners, you know, take advantage of that. So I wanted to bring that up.
Now, just to be clear, I don't want anyone thinking I went down there and got a limit. I certainly killed more Little Debbies than I did ducks. So just to be clear about that. All right, that's all the time we're going to have for today. Trey Reid, Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. We'll see you back here next week for another edition of 5 Outdoors.